What if I told you that the most powerful man in New York City once walked into a rundown diner at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, looking like he hadn't slept in a week, and nobody, absolutely nobody, recognized him? What if I told you that this one moment would change two lives forever? This is that story. Benjamin Hartley was worth $12 billion. 12 billion. The kind of money that could buy small countries, influence elections, or feed entire cities. But on this particular Tuesday morning in November, he looked like he was worth about 12 cents. His Armani suit, the one that cost more than most people's cars, was wrinkled and stained. His usually perfectly groomed hair hung in greasy strands around his face. His designer shoes, scuffed and worn, told the story of a man who had been walking the streets of Manhattan all night long. You see, 24 hours earlier, Benjamin had received a phone call that shattered his world. His estranged daughter, Emily, the one he hadn't spoken to in 5 years because of his relentless pursuit of wealth, had been in a car accident. By the time he reached the hospital, she was gone. The funeral had been that morning. He'd stood at the graveside surrounded by hundreds of people who worked for him, who feared him, who wanted something from him. But not one person who actually knew him, not one person who mourned with him. Just him, his grief, and the crushing weight of a life built on everything except what mattered. After the service, instead of returning to his penthouse, Benjamin had walked. He'd walked through Central Park, down Fifth Avenue, through the Village, across the Brooklyn Bridge and back. He'd walked until his feet bled and his soul felt raw. Now, at 10 a.m., he found himself standing outside Mel's Diner on East 47th Street. It was the kind of place he would never normally enter: fluorescent lights, cracked vinyl booths, and the smell of bacon grease that had been accumulating for decades. But Benjamin was no longer normal. Grief had stripped away his armor, his pretense, his carefully constructed image. He was just a broken man who needed coffee and a moment to figure out how to keep breathing. The bell above the door chimed as he entered. The diner was nearly empty, just a few construction workers finishing their breakfast, and an elderly man reading yesterday's newspaper. Benjamin slumped into a corner booth, his head in his hands. That's when Anna appeared. Anna Rodriguez was 24 years old and had been working double shifts at Mel's for 3 months straight. She was trying to save money for nursing school while supporting her sick mother and younger brother. Every dollar mattered. Every tip counted. Every customer was a chance to get one step closer to her dreams. She had noticed the disheveled man the moment he walked in, while the other customers and even her co-worker looked away the way people do when confronted with someone who appears homeless. Anna saw something different. She saw pain. She saw a human being who needed help. "Morning," she said softly, approaching his table with a worn menu and a genuine smile. "Coffee to start?" Benjamin looked up, startled. When was the last time someone had spoken to him with kindness rather than calculation? When was the last time someone had looked at him and seen a person rather than a bank account? "Yes," he managed. "Black." Anna poured his coffee, her hand steady despite the fact that she could tell this wasn't going to be a big tip table. His clothes, though she didn't recognize their expensive origins, looked like he'd slept in them. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the cup. "You okay, hun?" she asked gently. The question nearly broke him. When was the last time someone had asked if he was okay? When was the last time anyone had called him hon without wanting something in return? Benjamin's voice cracked. "I lost someone yesterday." Anna's expression softened immediately. She'd seen grief before in the mirror when her father had died 2 years earlier. She recognized the hollow look, the way sorrow sat in someone's shoulders. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. "You want some breakfast?" Sometimes food helps even when nothing else does. Benjamin hadn't eaten in 36 hours, but he hadn't realized he was hungry until that moment. "What do you recommend?" "Honestly, the pancakes are terrible, the eggs are overcooked, and the bacon's too salty." Anna smiled conspiratorially. "But the French toast is decent, and I can ask Joey to go easy on the butter if you're not feeling great." Despite everything, Benjamin almost smiled. When was the last time someone had been honest with him about anything? French toast sounds perfect. For the next hour, Anna checked on him regularly. She kept his coffee cup full, brought him extra napkins when she noticed his eyes were watery, and even sat with him for a few minutes during the slow period, asking gentle questions about the person he'd lost. Benjamin found himself talking about Emily, really talking about her for the first time since she was a child. How she used to make him paper crowns when she was 5. How she'd wanted to be a veterinarian. How he'd missed her graduation because of a merger. How he'd chosen business over her, again and again, until she'd stopped calling altogether. Anna listened without judgment, refilling his coffee and occasionally touching his shoulder in comfort. She told him about losing her father, about how grief felt like drowning until one day you realized you were swimming. The hardest part, she said, is forgiving yourself for all the things you wish you'd done different. Benjamin stared at her. This young woman, who couldn't have been much older than Emily, who was working in a diner to chase her dreams, had just articulated something he'd been struggling with for 24 hours. When he finally asked for the check, Benjamin's hands were steadier. The coffee and food had helped, but more than that, Anna's kindness had reminded him that human connection was possible, that he was still human, despite everything he'd built around himself. The bill was $12.47. Benjamin reached for his wallet and realized he had a choice to make. He could pay with his Black American Express card, the one that would instantly reveal his identity and transform this interaction from genuine human connection into something else entirely. Or he could pay with the cash in his wallet. He looked at Anna, really looked at her. Her uniform was clean but worn. Her shoes had been resoled at least once. Her name tag was slightly crooked, held on with a safety pin. She was beautiful not because of makeup or expensive clothes, but because of the light in her eyes when she talked about nursing school, the gentleness in her voice when she'd comforted a stranger. Benjamin pulled out the cash. All of it. He placed 5 $20 bills on the table, enough to cover the meal and leave a $87.53 tip. For Anna, it represented nearly a full day's wages, but more importantly, it represented something else. The first genuinely selfless act Benjamin had committed in years. Anna's eyes widened when she saw the money. Her hands actually shook as she picked it up, counting it twice to make sure she wasn't seeing things. "Sir, this is too much. I can't accept." "You can," Benjamin said quietly, standing up. "You saved my life today. You might not realize it, but you did." He started toward the door, then turned back. Anna was still staring at the money, tears in her eyes. "What's your full name?" he asked. "Anna Rodriguez," she said, confused. Benjamin nodded and walked out into the New York morning. For the first time in 24 hours, he knew what he needed to do. That afternoon, Benjamin returned to his office for the first time since Emily's death. His assistant, Margaret, was surprised to see him. "Mr. Hartley, I didn't expect." "Margaret, I need you to research someone for me. Anna Rodriguez. She's a waitress at Mel's Diner on East 47th. I want to know about her nursing school applications, her family situation, everything." "Sir, is this for a background check? Should I call security?" "No," Benjamin said, settling behind his desk for the first time in days. "This is for something else entirely." Within 2 hours, Margaret had compiled a complete file. Anna Rodriguez, age 24, had been accepted to 3 nursing programs but couldn't afford tuition. She was supporting her mother, who had diabetes and couldn't work, and her 16-year-old brother. She'd been working multiple jobs for 2 years, saving every penny, but was still $40,000 short of her first year's tuition. Benjamin read the file twice. Then he made a phone call. "Margaret, I want you to establish a scholarship, the Emily Hartley Memorial Scholarship for nursing students. Full tuition, room and board, plus a stipend for living expenses. I want the first recipient to be Anna Rodriguez." That's very generous, Mr. Hartley. What criteria should we establish for?" "Kindness," Benjamin said without hesitation. "The criteria should be kindness." 6 months later, Benjamin received a letter. It was handwritten on simple notebook paper. "Dear Mr. Hartley, I know it was you. It took me a while to figure it out, but I know. The scholarship committee said the donor wanted to remain anonymous, but I remembered your eyes from that morning at the diner. I've never forgotten them. I start nursing school next month. Because of you, I can focus on my studies instead of working 3 jobs. Because of you, my mom can get the medical care she needs. Because of you, my brother can stay in school instead of dropping out to work. But I want you to know something else. That morning you came into the diner, you weren't the only one who was saved. I'd been ready to give up. I'd been working so hard for so long, watching my dreams get further and further away, that I was starting to think maybe they weren't meant for me. Maybe I was supposed to just accept that some people get chances and some people don't. Your kindness that morning, the way you talked about your daughter, the way you listened to my stories about nursing school, the way you trusted me with your grief, it reminded me why I wanted to be a nurse in the first place. To help people, to see them when they're broken and help them heal. You gave me more than money, Mr. Hartley, you gave me hope. The world needs more people like you in it. With love and gratitude, Anna Meir. P.S. I hope you've learned to forgive yourself for the things you wish you'd done different. Your daughter knows you loved her. Benjamin read the letter 7 times before he could see clearly through his tears. That evening, he did something he hadn't done since he was a child. He called his sister, the one he'd lost touch with years ago when business became his only priority. They talked for 3 hours. The next week, he visited his mother, the one he'd been too busy to see for months. They had lunch and talked about Emily, about forgiveness, about the things that actually matter. And every Tuesday morning for the next year, Benjamin Hartley, Billionaire CEO, one of the most powerful men in New York, had breakfast at Mel's Diner. Not because the food was good, it wasn't, but because it reminded him of the day a 24-year-old waitress had saved his life with nothing but kindness. Because sometimes, that's all it takes. One act of genuine human connection to remind us who we really are underneath all the armor we build around ourselves. One moment of seeing and being seen to change the trajectory of 2 lives forever. Ana Rodriguez graduated nursing school summa cum laude. She now works in pediatric oncology, bringing the same kindness she showed in that diner to families facing their darkest moments. And Benjamin Hartley? He still runs his company, still makes business decisions worth millions of dollars. But now he also runs the Emily Hartley Foundation, which has provided scholarships to over 2,000 students who demonstrate exceptional kindness in their communities. He learned something that morning in the diner that no business school had ever taught him. The most valuable investment you can make isn't in stocks or bonds or real estate. It's in the simple act of recognizing the humanity in another person. It's in remembering that sometimes all it takes is one act of kindness to unlock a future you never thought you deserved. And both of them, the billionaire and the waitress, carry that truth with them every single day. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories every day.